I am so happy to be here. If we don't know each other, my name is Christina Winter, and I get so many questions about decodable text and how to use decodable text, and I keep writing articles on my blog and sharing that way. And I just thought it's so fun to get together with teachers and chat about it. So thank you for joining me. And if you're tuning into the replay, thank you also for joining. But I am just so excited because literacy is my passion. And I just love talking about literacy and talking about especially how children learn to read. And so obviously, I think I'm in good company because you do too. I'm very hopeful that my voice is going to hold out. I have about an hour planned for us this evening. I've been battling a cold. I think a lot of people are battling some kind of something. I know schools are having trouble finding coverage and all of that. And I just wish you health. But I have not been feeling well, but I also committed to doing this and I wanted to be here and I was so looking forward to it. So I didn't want to cancel. So I rested up today. I have my hot tea. I am ready to go. So I want to get started. Again, if you are just tuning in, my name is Christina Winter. If we don't know each other, my website is Mrs. Winter's Bliss. And I teach, I share, I create, I try to connect with as many teachers as possible. I was formerly a first grade teacher for 21 years. And a few years ago, my husband and I, we just had some family stuff that we just needed me to be at home. And I cried my eyes out when I went in to resign. And I just said, I just need a break from teaching. And I just knew that I wasn't done teaching yet. And I don't know what exactly the future looks like for me. But for right now, I'm just working through my website online, reaching teachers. You may have attended Unlocking the Science of Reading conference or Leaders of Literacy, or you just visit my website, or maybe you just saw this fun post on Instagram and said, I'm coming. And so welcome. And again, welcome if you're watching the replay. I'm so happy that you are here. I would love to tell you just really quickly, I taught for 21 years, first grade, which is the year that kids learn to read, right? Do we have any first grade teachers here? And I was a trained balanced literacy teacher, which meant that my students did not read decodable text. My students, we leveled our students. We did what we call M-class or the DRA back in the day, Fontes and Pinnell kits, but my kids were reading at such and such level. And that is how I always taught. And now all of the things I've learned, I've taken a ton of coursework, including reading teacher top 10 tools. I'm working through letters. I've been to so many trainings and webinars and all of that, and just reading up on the research about decodables. It just is in my mind, I'm just why wasn't I using decodable text? It just makes so much more sense. Why was my district training me to use, pattern text or level text, because it just doesn't unlock the code for our students. And all the things that we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to talk about what are the benefits of using decodable text. And that is what I'm here to share with you. You might have some resources that I've created with decodable text, but it's so powerful. And the things I'm hearing from teachers and just hearing and working with teachers or hearing from teachers in my Facebook group, that decodable text is creating these capable, skilled, confident readers. And I don't know about you, but if I struggle through all of it, I try to work out, but I have been trying for 3 years to do a pull-up. I'm struggling and I cannot do it. So do I want to keep doing it? I don't. I'm sorry. I'll do some push-ups instead. So I kind of just put that in my mind. We want to build confident and capable readers. And using decodable text is a key to do that. So what I plan to do right now is I'm going to flip over. I prepared some slides, and then I'm going to share my slides and I'll teach through the slides. My good friend Laura is here. She is a teacher as well. She knows a ton, and she will be in the chat answering any questions that you have, but she will also like scoop up questions. And at the end, any of your specific questions, I will attend to at the end because I am distractible. So I don't want to answer your question and then get off trail. That could happen. So questions will be answered at the end when I come back after the slides. I hope I wrote myself some little sticky notes right here. I like to do giveaways because you join me here live. You're like making this commitment to coming. So I have got some goodies to give away. So I hope you're a winner. And answer your questions. And but I just thank you for being a dedicated teacher who just is here and excited to learn. If you've taken letters or you follow Dr. Louisa Moats, she tells us about informed teachers, how they are so valuable. Like programs don't teach. It doesn't matter if you have the best reading program or the best phonics program. It's not the programs that teach, it's the teachers that teach. So you should feel like amazing. Like you should tell your husband and go get you a bowl of ice cream right now because you are here dedicated to learning and becoming a better teacher and all of that. So let's get started. I'm going to flip through my slides and then we'll come back again at the end and we'll go through some questions. So let me share my screen here. Okay, here we go. All right, lots of friends. Let me just make sure. Okay, yep, everything is working. Okay, again, choosing and using decodable text. So my goal here, again, is to provide you knowledge, provide you the research, and give you some like teaching strategies to take back to your classroom. I'm going to give you a freebie of some decodable text that like a party gift, take it home with you. And if you have decodable text that you love, I hope that you can take these strategies with you. If you don't, I do have a resource that I'm going to offer up for you at an incredible deal at the end. You don't have to purchase it. It's just something that teachers are asking me for. And so I have created and I would love to offer it to you. So we're going to talk about what is decodable text, what are the benefits of using decodable text, choosing high quality, because my good friend Wiley Blevins, he talks to us about some decodables are poor and some are high quality decodables. And so we want to really like have a checklist for which ones to look out for and then go through some lesson routines. So that is what we are going to conquer this evening. Okay, first of all, if you have ever joined me at any of my live events, I've shared this before, but I want to make sure that everybody has like a good understanding. Of course, if you've taken letters, you're very familiar with this, but we need to really understand about reading because for years and years, I thought reading was a very visual process. I had my kids memorizing sight words by sight, flashcards, all of that. I put words in those little letter boxes because I thought if they could recognize the shape, they would read by sight. Well, we know that reading is not something that students do like by their visual, we don't learn to read by sight. If that was true, how could we read all of the different fonts, all of the different typographs and colors and shapes and sizes of letters, right? But we do know if we study the work of Stanislaus Dehaene, that's how you say his name. He's a French cognitive scientist. He wrote this book that I have here, Reading in the Brain. It's not an easy lift. It's not an easy book to read, but if that is something that you are like excited to learn about, you can definitely pick that one up. Or you can go on YouTube and you can just, type in Reading in the Brain and watch like a 1-hour video of him talking to you about what happens in the brain when you read. So Reading is not a natural process. In fact, our brains are not made for reading. Reading is not that old of a process. It's man-made. And really, our brains were hardwired for language or speech. And you might hear or have the book, maybe, Speech to Print by Dr. Louisa Mopes. But that is where we get the information. And that is why phonological or phonemic awareness is so important, is that our brain has the natural ability to take the speech sounds, interpret speech sounds. So kids come to us with speech or with understanding language, and they're not capable. It's not a natural thing to read overall, right? And the very good news is our brains are malleable and we can rewire the brain. So science tells us the different parts of the brain that work together as we read. There's not one certain part or specific part of the brain that's called the reading part. It's all of these parts that have to work together to train our brain. We have to train our brain to read. So just looking at my simple picture, this is not like super scientific, but in the back of the brain is what's called the orthographic processor, and that's the part of the brain that recognizes letters and words and pictures. And this is the part of the brain, they sometimes call it the letterbox, that remembers sequences for spelling. And then in the front of the brain, we have the part that recognizes the sounds. And that's the phonological processor. And that is where phonemic awareness happens, in that part of the brain. And so we're born with those parts of the brain, but we're not born with the middle part, the phonological assembly. It's not intact when we're born. And that's the part of the brain that helps us to connect the speech to the visual images, such as letters. And so when we have that connection of the speech and the sound, the speech and the letter, or the phoneme and the grapheme, that lets us enable, when we see it, we can read it, right? When we see, the letters C-A-T, we can read cat. But the only way to build that part of the brain, or hardwire that part of the brain, or build those neural pathways, is through explicit systematic phonics instruction. Now, when I say the only way, we're talking about, for most people, we know that there are always outliers and things like that, but that is what we have to build. And so again, what I said, explicit systematic phonics instruction. So, and then we have that part of the brain, the context processor. That's the part that interprets words. It connects meaning. So when you say a word, if I said the word match and I was holding socks, you knew I was talking about a pair of socks. I'm not talking about a match that I light a fireplace or something like that, right? So we know that our brains are wired for spoken language, and the process of matching written symbols to speech sounds and connecting the meaning, it helps build those neural pathways that we need in order to read, or in order to instantly recognize words, instant recall of words. So Stanislaw, he told us that, he says, there's a quote I read, it says, the brain processes every single letter and does not look at the whole word shape. Teaching letter to sound correspondence is therefore essential. It is the fastest way to acquire reading and comprehension. So that is a little bit about the brain. And that is also kind of just setting the stage of why our phonics instruction is so important. So let's just kind of recap. I thought this was, if we think about reading, the general sequence of reading moves from saying sounds coming from speech to mapping the sounds, meaning, giving our students using, like if you do phoneme grapheme mapping, by identifying, or phoneme segmentation, by identifying how many sounds there are, to reading and writing words in isolation, and reading text and talking about the meaning. So we know through decades of research called the science of reading is not a curriculum. It's not like something that you can get and put in yours. It's research. It's an approach to reading. But we know that the best instructional approach for everyone is structured literacy, and that's systematic, explicit instruction. And we know when we deliver that systematic and explicit instruction to our students, that we have to build in plenty of cumulative review, and we have to keep diagnostic, like keep paying attention to what do our students know, what do they not know, right? Okay, so I'm a super fangirl of Wiley Blevins, and a lot of the work that I'm sharing with you tonight is coming from Wiley Blevins. He is a literacy expert. He has been around for decades. He sells phonics curriculum. He's written decodable books. He seems like a really cool guy, and if anybody knows him, I would love to like hang out with him and chat with him or something, because I think that something that I think he does really well in his books. And so this book, which you can see pictured there, A Fresh Look at Phonics, is really amazing, because the book, it explains the essential components that we should be making sure that we have in our structured literacy classroom. But he also shares a lot of how to do it so in your classroom. And so his book talks about, and if you don't have the book, ask your principal to buy it for you or put it on your wish list or something like that. I hate that teachers have to buy their own things. Sadly, it's how it is. But I bet if you write a Donors Choose grant, somebody will buy, keep a little stack of books that you want to buy and get them. But it is very easy also to like reference. If you're like, what are word ladders? And you want to look it up, you can like open to that chapter and just look a little bit about it. So it's not a heavy book. But in his book, he talks about, his whole book is about 7 ingredients for strong phonics instruction. And so he says the very first ingredient, oh, I have these like fancy slides, readiness. And readiness is that, reading readiness is phonemic awareness, alphabet recognition. It's really the foundation for learning. And then our second key ingredient is having a good scope and sequence. And we're going to really talk about the scope and sequence on a few slides forward. But basically, he says that we have to make sure it is, it follows a particular order, easy to complex, separating confusing parts, and building in plenty of review. And then he reminds us that we need, blending is where it is at. So he says that is the primary decoding strategy that we should be using. We should be teaching our students, we string together sounds in a printed word to read them. So we have to frequently model and apply blending, and having our students have opportunities for blending, and also opportunities in to the words that they're going to read in text. And so we're going to talk about his strategy called blending lines in just a bit. Okay, his fourth key ingredient is dictation. And so dictation is really the encoding piece. That is the guided spelling. That's where teachers can think aloud, model transferring phonics skills to writing, all of that, but building in plenty of review for dictation work for your students. Then word awareness activities, those are things like word chaining, word ladders, word sorts, but really building in some conversations about how words work. We just changed the beginning sound and we have this, or what's the same about these words? What's different? How did you know that this word was spelled with A-Y and not A-I, having conversations about how words work. And then practicing with some activities to solidify our students' learning. And then number 6, high frequency words. And so we need to build in some systematic instruction with high frequency words. Hopefully you know a little bit about integrating your high frequency words into your phonics instruction and moving away from memorizing sight words. You might have heard me talk about the heart word method before, but we really just want to teach our students that high frequency words, even if they just have one irregular part, we can still kind of group them in with the phonics skills that we teach. Okay, and then finally, his 7th key ingredient for phonics instruction is reading connected text, and that's what we call decodable text, because it's controlled text and it's just giving our students authentic reading experiences and application of what you have explicitly taught. So those are his 7 key ingredients. That is where his research tells us, after decades of research, how kids who are performing well or reading well and becoming skilled readers, what were teachers doing. And those are the 7 key ingredients that he talks about. In the back of his book, he talks about 10 reasons, I believe, of like why students, let's see what he calls it exactly. I don't want to say it wrong. He says, sorry. He says 10 common causes of phonics instruction and failure. So he talks about, you know, if you're not seeing the progress, well, here is why the schools that he looked at, the students that he looked at, why they were failing. And the number one thing, and I'm so guilty of this, was that I did not provide enough adequate review and repetition, because our curriculums, they move so fast. We always have so much to do, right? And so we're trying to fit it all in. And our students, he talks about our students, our new learners who are just learning the code, they need, likely, a lot of them need 4 to 6 weeks of practice. So we teach them, but they still need some practice opportunities. And we need to really keep in mind that we are teaching for mastery, not just exposure. And so that, again, is where all of these activities, dictation, blending, word awareness, high frequency words, all these reading connected text, decodable text, if you do literacy centers, all of those things are things that give our students the opportunity to practice or solidify their learning. And then the second thing that he said, the second reason, is that students didn't have a lack of application to real reading and writing experiences. So he said that, you know, worksheets are great and drill and kill and all of that, but really where it really connects for our students, where it solidifies their learning, is when they have the time to apply what they have learned. So, okay, let's do a giveaway because I need to take a drink of tea. So you may have seen before, but I like to mail stickers out to teachers, because I think that you are a leader and I want you to lead with confidence. I want you to lead your students, lead your classroom, lead your school. So I would love to send you some stickers and a couple to send to give to your friends. So just jump in the chat and let's find somebody who has a birthday. I'm thinking of somebody's birthday, but I'm not going to say it. So jump in the chat and tell me when your birthday is, and we'll do a giveaway, and then you can tell me if you're the winner. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh gosh, this is going to take me a while and I don't want to. Oh, okay. I found someone close. So Laura, who's here in the background, helping to manage, make sure all the tech is working correctly, is having a birthday on Thursday. And Christine says her birthday is on November 6th. So Christine, you're the first person who's close to Laura's birthday on the 10th. So let's email me at hello@mrswintersbliss.com and we will send you some stickers so you can lead with confidence. A little love note for you, fun mail, right? Okay, let's move forward. Okay, so level text versus decodable. I started talking a little bit about this, but this is a book that I used in my classroom. It might look like something that you have or had in your classroom. And before I start, I just want to share with you, please know that there is no judgment here. There is no one here to shame you. If you love your leveled books and you find that they are working for your students, I think having an open mind, the fact that you're here is great. But if you have been using leveled books all the way until today, please know I used them for 21 years. And as we learn, it wasn't until I started studying the science of reading and taking the trainings that I really realized how harmful they were for my students. Harmful is a little bit dramatic, but how they were not helping my students. I'm really going to talk about how decodables help our students orthographically map or build those neural pathways in our brain. That's really what it's about. If we want our kids to be good readers and not struggling readers, then we have to build those neural pathways. So please know that I'm here as a support to you. I'm not here to judge or tell you you're doing it wrong. Okay, so let's move forward. So I use these books. I had bins and bins of books that my kids could pick from and they could use and put in their book box and read and take home and all of that. But we can see that this book is a level A book. It's a level, and leveled books are typically patterned. They have something that's, especially in the levels A, B, and C, some kind of pattern. And really they rely on picture support for our students. And so this book saying there is an owl in the woods, there's an owl in the woods, there's an owl in the tree. The next page might say there is an owl in the grass, right? Our kids truly don't have to read. And I just want you to just pop out for a second and think, okay, level A, for me, my students had to leave kindergarten at a level D. So if they were, doing assessments, they might have to be at a level A to be a benchmark at grade level by mid-year, I assume, right? So a level A book, kindergarten, does a kindergarten have the skills to read those words? Because you can jump in the comments. What kind of skills do you see in that pattern text? In the word owl, in the word woods. Those are some higher level skills. If we think about our systematic scope and sequence, the ow sound is not what I typically taught in first grade until closer to the end of the year. And the double O that is in the word in wood, right? That is not typically taught till the end of the year. So this is a level A book. The only way that our students could read this text is by reading the pictures, because they don't have the decoding. They're not truly decoding the words. I looked through my daughter's old bin of books, and this one is another one you see that she had. And it's, you see a lion, you see a robot, you see a monster, you see a dragon. Well, there's so many skills in this text that they're not possibly reading the book, and they're relying on the 3 cueing of what makes sense, what goes with the picture, and they're not relying on their decoding skills. And what's hard for us, or I guess for me, it was exciting when my students started to read. And, if I had students who came to first grade non-readers, and then I got to watch them pick up this level of books, it was exciting. Parents are posting videos. My friends post pictures and videos of their kids like reading, like, oh, hooray, they're reading, because they pick up this book and they're reading. Truly, they're not really reading. They're reading the pictures, or they're reading, yeah, they're reading the pictures is what they're doing, or they're memorizing the pattern. And so we want to move away from that. And that is where decodable text comes in. So what is decodable text? So a decodable text could be a book, could be a poem, it could be a passage, but it is controlled text, controlled meaning, controlled phonics skills that have been taught up until that point. So if you're thinking about your scope and sequence, let's say that you start in first grade teaching short A, and then you teach short I, and then you teach short O. Well, if you're like on your third week, then only words with A, I, and O would be in your decodable text. And of course, the high frequency words that you've introduced or taught to go with it. So only up until that point. And there's an emphasis on the skill that you're working on, right? The new target skill. And this is giving your students the opportunity for loads and loads and loads of practice, right? So if you look at this picture that I took here of this decodable text, this book is a book that has practice for students who are working on the ch sound. So they have the CH and the TCH digraph. And so the scope and sequence I followed when creating these books just did short vowels and then blends and then digraphs. And so you can see every single one of those words on that page are decodable for your students who have gone through that systematic scope and sequence. So that is what we need to be. That is why the power of decodables. Now we get a lot of pushback because listening to a child read, I see, what's the pattern I see? Yeah, you see a monster, you see a dragon. It's like painless, right? When we see our students like struggling to read through every single word, and sounding out the words and blending the words, that can be a little bit painful. It can be uncomfortable. It should be for our students. They are doing the hard work that's hardwiring their brain. They're building up their phonological processor so that they are connecting. When they see that certain symbol, that letter, they say that sound. And the more that they see those letters together, the more they practice blending those letter patterns together, they become unitized. And so what's his name? David Kilpatrick talks a lot about that in his book, Equipped for Reading Success. But when they read those letters a lot and they decode them, they go through that whole process, they become unitized. So then they store them in their brains and they have like immediate access or immediate recall to the words. And that's why we can read by sight, not sight words like high frequency words, but we read by sight because we have done all of that work. We've mapped those words. It's called orthographic mapping. It just means that we store those words for instant accurate recall, right? Now, so there is pushback, and there's pushback for other reasons. Some people have this idea that decodables are horrible, like the kids aren't going to be interested, but there are so many more amazing decodables now. But some people say, oh, they're just so boring. They don't have good ones. What we want to keep in mind is that decodables are like our training wheels for learning to ride a bike. We put training wheels on. They're not the end goal. It's what our students are going to use as they are learning decoding, as they are learning the skills it takes for immediate word recognition. So they're not the end goal. So a lot of people will ask me, so I'll just share with you, and you could absolutely go watch Michael Hunter and Linda Farrell with the F, Farrell. You can just search them on YouTube, but they have a video that you can watch, really good one, about using decodable text. But they are literacy experts. I think they own readsters.com, but because a lot of people say, well, how long are kids reading decodable text? When are they ready to move into like literature or regular books, right? Like Frog and Toad or things like that. Well, what they have found through the research is that until students can decode and read with ease, meaning they're not decoding every single word, short vowels, digraphs, blends, magic E, vowel teams, diphthongs, all of those patterns, single syllable and multi-syllabic words, until they can do that with ease, then they should be, reading through decodable text. And then once they are, not at that emergent or early stage anymore, then they're ready to start reading less controlled text. Okay. Oh my goodness. Thank you all for listening. I feel like I'm talking a lot and we're already like so far in. Okay. So choosing high quality decodables. These books, you might have some because, I bought these for my daughter when she was little, and they're not horrible. They're absolutely not horrible. They're actually a really good choice. Costco sells them now. A good choice for parents, but these are Bob books, decodables, and they're great. They're just not as exciting as what we have available now, right? But really, it's not about like if the pictures are black and white. That's not really, we want them to be engaging for our kids. And so here's what Wiley Blevins says. So I shared with you this book, again, put it on your wish list. And a lot of the information I'm going to share now is from his other book called Choosing and Using Decodable Text, a very well-loved book. I have tabs all over it, but he talks to us about like the decodables of the past are the past. With all the research that's surfacing, it's created, companies to create decodable books that are really great. But what we need to do is be like an informed buyer, and we have to choose high quality ones because they're not all created equal. So in his book here, he has a document called Becoming a Nation of Readers, and they set a criteria, and here's what they came up with, how to know if it's a high quality decodable. 1, is it comprehensive? Does it make sense? Does it sound natural sounding? Does the text sound like a proficient speaker or a reader of English, right? Has to be comprehensive. Is it instructive? Meaning, are there previously taught decodable words and new target phonics skills that have loads of ample practice for our students? Are they going to use them to further their learning? Instructive. And then, like I was saying, engaging. We want these books to be things that our students gravitate towards. They want to read them again and again and again. We want them to revisit them for fluency. And we also want our students to be able to have enough in the text that they can read the text, talk about the text, and even write about what they have been reading. So this is the criteria that was come up with by Wiley Blevins and Becoming a Nation of Readers. But here are some of the common issues with decodable text. So when you're looking at them, you want to check, do these decodable text? What they found is that some include low utility words. And what that means is that I know when I had Scholastic, the reading series, it was many years ago, but one of the decodables was something about the cat in the vat or something like that. And a vat was like a huge cauldron. It is not a word that my students use. It is not a word that they're going to likely come across. I mean, building vocabulary is amazing, but we're building vocabulary for words that have meaning for them. But that is what he would consider, like, that would be a low utility word. Or if in a decodable text, he shares, I can lug the cat with the rug. Well, obviously the writer of that decodable was trying to put in some words, short U words. So they put in lug and rug, right? But a student usually isn't going to use that word. That's a low utility word. Another issue is that students using books that use non-standard English sentence structure. So if a book said something like, the pup did run at Kit, they're trying to use just decodable words, but that's not how we talk. And that's not, that would be very confusing, especially for second language learners, right? So that is not a high quality decodable book. Books that use nonsensical sentences or tongue twisters, I can't even say it, like fun, Fran, flips, flops, and flaps. Like, that's like a tongue twister, but that's not like, what's a child, that's how are they going to take meaning from that, right? So we want to stay away from books that have those like tongue twister type. And then books often use odd names, like Ben had Mem. Like, that's not a common name, but they're just trying to build in words that are decodable, right? And so with these common problems, it just really makes meaning hard for our students to figure out. And the goal, again, is that we want to give them ample practice of the new phonics skill and cumulative practice of what they've already learned. But the whole goal of reading is that we get meaning from what we've read. So those are common issues. And then here are the benefits of using decodable text. And so I've already mentioned some of them, but just like a review. So number one, we have our students have an opportunity to practice what we have explicitly taught in our phonics scope and sequence. What we have taught, maybe in isolation, we have worked through things on our sound wall, and then we have done some blending and segmenting. We've matched up our phonemic awareness, but now they're taking it to the next level. They're taking it from the speech sounds, from the word level to the sentence level, right? And so, in fact, Wiley Blevins, he says in his book that students who practice their phonics skills in these authentic learning situations rather than the drill and kill is where the learning actually sticks, where they progress faster and where learning sticks. And then the second thing is, when we offer students decodable text, we're forcing them to practice decoding words while reading, rather than guessing, rather than relying on pictures. And they're making that connection to the phoneme sound. They come to us with speech, they're coming with the sound, and they're attaching the grapheme. They're making the phoneme grapheme correspondences, and they're strengthening that neural pathway. And that is what, again, promotes orthographic mapping. And that's the process. I know orthographic mapping and phoneme grapheme mapping is often confused. But orthographic mapping is the mental process that we use to permanently store words for effortless retrieval. It's how we make our words sight words, where we can read anything when we pick it up. We don't decode words, right? And phoneme grapheme mapping is when we tell the students, tap out the sound cat, act, and then put a little mark, put a little chip, act, and they're doing this with us, and then write the letters in the word cat, right? That's phoneme grapheme mapping, where they are segmenting and blending words. So just not to confuse that. And then finally, the benefit of using decodable text, we're building their confidence. I don't know, jump in the chat if you have used decodable text. please jump in the chat and tell your friends here, maybe like what you have seen, because I get like emails all the time. I get feedback from teachers. I get comments in my Instagram DMs that their kids are like beaming and so prideful and so excited that they are actually reading. They know they're reading because they had to do that heavy lift, that work, right? And they're successfully using their decoding skills to unlock the meaning while they're reading. Okay, let me grab a quick drink here. So now that you know the benefits, what it is, and all of that, you're thinking, well, where do I start? How do I use them? Like, so let's talk about routines that you're going to use for using decodable text with your students. So how do you start? Well, first of all, you have to have a systematic scope and sequence, like Wiley Blevins talked to us about. So first of all, there is no agreed upon scope and sequence. Everyone has their own interpretation. But there are some key things that we have to keep in mind to know if it is a good scope and sequence. Here are the factors or the criteria, the characteristics we have to keep in mind. First of all, your scope and sequence needs to build from simple to complex. So you can look at this kindergarten scope and sequence. You can see it's building simple because it's just sounds to complex. We start in short vowel, we go to blends, we do digraphs, and then at the end of kindergarten, you're doing long vowels with silent E, right? You have to teach high utility skills before the less useful sound spellings. We want, especially in kindergarten, if we have kindergarten teachers in here, give me a woohoo. Kindergarten, we want to get them into reading as soon as possible. So we want to move away from that whole letter of the week, starting with A, then doing B, then doing C. We want to move into where our students have sounds that they can start blending and segmenting and putting them together right away. If you look, week 1, M, and then A, and then S. P, T. So you can already make several words with just those sounds, putting those together. The sooner we can get them into blending and segmenting, the faster that it's all going to click for them. So high utility skills before less useful ones. And that's why if you have a sound wall, you would see like your higher, your graphemes that are more frequent should be at the top of your sound wall cards, to the lower frequent ones are at the bottom because you use those less. See, I just went on a bird walk. Okay, separate your confusing letter sounds. I bet you'll give me an amen here, but a lot of my first graders mixed up the short E, and the short I often. If they wanted to write dig, they would write deg, right? And that is often confused. So we have to separate those. We have to separate those out so that our students can absolutely have some practice with one of them and then another one, and then do some cumulative review, right? So separate confusing letters or sounds. And then we want to build upon skills with plenty of cumulative review. So your scope and sequence is what you should be using if your school district provides you one, or when you signed up, I gave you one. If you still need one, please just shoot me an email and I'm happy to send you this one that I created. But it would need to match all of those characteristics, all of that criteria. And that is what you should be using for your tier 1 instruction. Your tier 1 instruction is the instruction that all of your students, no matter what level they are, have access to. That is your whole group instruction, what you're teaching each week. So if you're doing word study, then if your scope and sequence, you're at short A, then that's what you're teaching short A, right? That's your tier 1 instruction. And so once you have this, then you're ready. And so here's the first grade and the second grade, and I'll just give you a second to look at that. You can see how those skills are progressing and building, cumulative review, all of that. Okay. And so now we're going to talk about lesson routines. And so you're actually going to get this story. I'm going to give you this tonight, but this is the lesson routines that Wiley Blevins exactly suggests to us what we should be doing to help our students develop into like proficient readers using decodable text. So we are going to do some high impact activities. We're going to go through what are we going to do before, what are we going to do during, and what are we going to do after we are finished reading. And again, this is my resource that I have created. I'm going to offer it to you. You do not have to purchase it. I think it's an amazing resource, but please know that you can use this routine. If your school has purchased decodables, you can use this routine with any decodables, these strategies or ideas. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do, what are we going to do? Always explicitly tell our students what we are going to be teaching them. We're not even going to give them books yet, right? We're not going to give them, but we're going to talk to them. We're going to be explicit and we're going to say, today, friends, we are going to learn the sound ch as in cheese and the ch sound. And so you're going to also be bringing that back to, you've already introduced that in your sound wall. You've already explicitly taught that. You've already talked about what is your mouth doing? What does it feel like? You're going to bring it back to that with your students. You're going to remind them of that. Because you've already kind of gone through some of that in your whole group lesson with your students, but you're just giving them like that zero in, target in. This is what we're going to be talking about really quick, right? And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work through some blending lines. I'm going to show you exactly what Wiley Blevins, he wants us to do with blending lines, but they are that explicit front loading. We're going to really prepare our students for reading. It's like the front loading to get them warmed up to read the book that they're going to be reading. And you're going to, the next part will be introducing or reviewing if you're doing high frequency words like heart words and things like that in a different part of your day, or maybe this is when you want to do it. But you'll be teaching that and you're helping your students to see what, just analyzing the words is basically what the heart word method is like they're just attaching the sound to symbol for the regular parts and paying attention to what's irregular and talking about why is it irregular and what is the part that we have to remember by heart, right? So you're going to talk through that and then you're going to preview and predict. And what that is that you're introducing, he wants us to still do some vocabulary and have conversations about books. But I would just like print out on a little note card, this is the word prevent. This is not in this book. This word is not decodable at this point, but it's not in this actual text, Mitch and the hens. But this story is about a boy, Mitch, who doesn't want the fox to get the hens. And so he's thinking of ways he latches the gate so that the hen can't get the hen. I'm sorry, the fox can't get the hens. So you can talk about what does that word prevent mean and offer some just really quick with your students, but just build up some vocabulary with your students. So, and then this is the back of the book. You can see the story words. So those would be another example of some practice and the high frequency words that are in the text. Okay, let's talk about what blending lines are, because this was something, I mean, I did plenty of blending with my students, but I didn't do it in this way. But I know, like, I've seen it in more than just Wiley Blevins' work. I've seen it other places, but this is what he suggests for us. And there's ways to build in some differentiation. But basically, again, it's like priming our students, getting them ready, building in the cumulative review that they need, and giving them like front loading for our students. So you can see this is Mitch and the hens, and every row has a certain thing. The first row he calls minimal contrast. And basically what that means is it's like the known skill to the new skill. So students would know if they've already gone through short vowels, they know mit, they could decode mit, but they haven't had an opportunity yet to read words or learn words with the ch sound. So you're just adding ch to make Mitch. Bun becomes bunch, right? That's like word chaining also. And then the second row is just varying the beginning, changing the beginning, and then varying the ending, and mixed skills. So those are words that are like spiral review of skills that they've already learned. So you can see they've already learned the ch sound. And then review words. So those are all short vowel or words with blends, because blends comes before digraphs, and more review words. And then these would be challenge words. These are either multisyllabic or words with inflectional endings or things like that. So you would be able to decide if you're using this in your small group. You would be able to decide which ones you want to use for which students. Or use some of them on one day and come back to it another day. You could do a blending routine. My suggestion, though, that I really think is important is I think you really need to, I tried to space out the words, enough and make it a nice font so that kids can read it. But I feel like that is very overwhelming for some students. And so if we really want them to keep their eyes on the word, have a little handy dandy, like little bookmark here that they could use so that they could really focus on decoding those words, right? And then the last two rows you can see there are words, those are sentences that are exactly in the text. So they're already getting like a preview of what they're going to read in the text. Okay, so those are some blending lines. Let's take a quick break. Oh my gosh, we are already here for an hour. I hope this is okay. Let's say, what's your favorite season? Tell me in the comments. I'm going to get a drink and let's pick somebody to win some decodable passages. I'm a summer girl. Fall's pretty good, but I like the sunshine. So I'm just going to scroll like this, and then I'm going to stop my pointer and it's on. Oh gosh, it's Jen with 2 N's, and your little color tile is purple. I don't know if you guys see color tiles, but Jen with 2 N's is the winner. And so Jen, you're going to email me hello@mrswintersbliss.com when this is over, and you're going to say, I won the Decodables bundle. Okay. And we're going to pick one more person to win as well. Okay. So everybody's a winner though. Remember I said you're going to get some Decodables as your party gift today. So, all right, let's keep moving, because I know you're maybe like, I don't know, you're probably enjoying this. Why am I stressed out? Let's not stress out. Okay. So Mitch and the hens, the next part. Now we're ready. Our kids are primed. They're ready to read. They've done the blending. We're ready. They know the high frequency words. Like every stinking word is decodable. Every single word in the book is decodable because they either have skills that they've previously learned or high frequency words, and they're decodable for your students. So you're ready to read together. Now, this is going to depend on your students, but you can do this where you can do choral reading with your students. The first read, that's one of the suggestions that Wiley Blevins gives, is to do choral reading or echo reading. I follow Lindsay Kemeny. She's a teacher in Utah. I think she's really an awesome teacher, but she has done some like videos that are on YouTube and things like that. But she talks about what she does with her students is she does a thing that she calls, it's called student read, teacher read, student read. And it's like, so the students read it and then the teacher reads it. So the students have opportunity to try it. The teacher reads it, and then the students read it. And that is a way to build up fluency. I think maybe that isn't something you might want to do the first read of the book, but definitely as your, the second read, because we want to think about, we don't need to give our students every time they meet with us in small group. We don't need to give them a new book every time. I hope you're not doing that, because that's an awful lot of work. These decodables, you could absolutely use decodable books, one decodable for the whole week. If you see your students, depending on the level of your students and how you set up your groups. But if you see them like 3 times a week, or even 5 times a week, if they're 5 times a week, then those kids are probably like your students who need extra support, right? So you could absolutely use that one book for the whole week and do all of these activities, the blending lines and the, blending with your whiteboards and doing all of like the word activities, word chaining, all of those things that you do in your small group, because reading the text should just be about 50% of your small group time, right? So, okay, but the first read, choral reading or echo reading, another idea is to do staggered reading. I used to do this with my students where we don't want them all to start on the very first page. I would, it's a procedure you teach them. You keep your books closed. And when I say we're ready to start, we've done all the pre-work, then I like tap the first person to read. And then I tap, I give them a few seconds to read a few sentences and then tap the next person. Because then that gives them they're not just listening to their buddy read, they're actually attending to the text, right? You can do partner reading, things like that. Whisper reading is awesome. And I just taught my students that if you're doing whisper reading and you can read it in a very quiet whisper, but when I put my hand across the table in front of your book, I want to hear your voice level come up so I can hear you even more. And the other kids are still whisper reading, right? So one of the things that we need to really be mindful of, though, and I think this comes from Anita Archer's work, is giving our students corrective feedback. And that is what you can see there in the during reading. But when students make a mistake, what is our procedure for our students so that we can help them so they don't keep making that same mistake? And so what we want to do is we want to point to the mistake that they read. If he read Mitch got a batch of eggs and it says Mitch got a bunch of eggs, we want to point to that word. We want to state the sound or state the error, and then state what it should be. We want to tell them, the teacher tells them, and the students repeat it. They blend it together, correct it, and then go back to the beginning of the sentence and read it again, right? So we kind of catch them right away, giving them that corrective feedback. And then, let's see. Oh, that changed size. That's weird. And then offering, after reading, we're going to do some comprehension with our students. And this is where not using all decodable text, when people are using decodable text, they're not always doing comprehension. And Wiley reminds us that, again, the whole purpose that we read is that we want to, build meaning. So we want to build in opportunities for our students to practice comprehension. And that can be oral or it can be written comprehension. And so you can see that on the decodables that I have created, it has the passage or the text at the top there, and then it has some comprehension, and I've offered 2 versions. So if your students need a sentence stem, then they can use that sentence stem to answer the question. Or if your students, if that's too babyish for your kiddos, then you can just use that regular lines and then they can write their answers. And so in a first grade classroom, I would probably start, if I was using the short vowel set, I would use the ones with the sentence stem to get them started. And as we kind of went through the routine, then I would graduate, take that scaffold away, but we're, asking and answering questions about what we read. And one of the things we could do is let them, do think, pair, share, talk to a partner about the question before they go to the answer, teach them how to go back in the text to find the answer. And so that's why I've built that piece into my decodables as well. And then the final thing that Wiley Blevins, in his opinion, is sharing is that we want to offer our students a way to connect their writing. And, we know this. We know that they get in the older grades, and what do they have to do? They have to write book report. I don't know, do people do book reports anymore? But they have to summarize the story or retell the, do the whole thing about what they read. So we have to give them practice opportunities to do that. But really what it does, it deepens their understanding of the text. And we know the research tells us that when they write about what they read and they're using their comprehension skills and their background knowledge, that they have to use all of those skills, their phonics skills, because a lot of the words they're going to write are from the story, the words that they read. So they're using all of those skills to write about what they read. Okay, so that's kind of the lesson routine. Again, you can use this format or this lesson plan guide kind of thing for any decodables. But like I was telling you, I have created decodables. I have decodable passages, and I've had them for, I think, about a year now. And teachers are saying, please give me more. Do you have any decodable books? So I literally worked for 6 months to create this resource. And I am celebrating because, man, was it hard work. I don't know if you've ever tried to write decodables, but if we want all that criteria, if we want them to be comprehensive, instructive, engaging, and we want them to be high quality, it's a lot of work to do, because we have to make sure that we have, good word choices. And every time you thought of a word and it wasn't the right word choice because it didn't fit in that phonics pattern, darn it, or the kids hadn't learned that skill yet, darn it. So we want them to be exciting and interesting, and we don't want them to read flops and flaps and all of that stuff. So I have a free resource that I'm giving you tonight. Laura's going to drop a link. It's a Dropbox link. Sometimes when a lot of people go to Dropbox at the same time, it locks up. So if that happens, please know I am going to follow up tomorrow with an email for you, and you will absolutely get it. So if you're on your phone, please don't stress. You're going to get this free resource to say thank you for coming. But my resource, my 60 decodable books that I'm so excited about, I am offering them to you for 40% off. You are going to get, they come in color, and these are custom illustrations. I had to find an illustrator and get someone to make these illustrations for me, but they're coming in color, and they're also coming, I colored these on fun paper, but black and white. So if you have printer, you want to save ink and all of that. But there's 60 books, and they're every single skill. Like you saw the scope and sequence earlier, color and black and white. They come with the passages, the lesson plans, the blending lines. I don't know if you noticed, because I'm so proud of myself. So I'm going to toot my own horn right now. Toot toot. That little QR code, or if you have my passages, that I have already, I recorded myself reading with your students. So I'm your guest teacher. And so it's an extra scaffold of support. So on the back of every single book, you can see this QR code that your students can scan with any device, and they can read with me 3 times. I'm going to say, hi, friend, today we're going to read. And then I tell them what we're going to read, and I tell them how to listen carefully as I read. And then we echo read, and then we choral read. And then I thank them for being my reading bunny. But, I just want to give you all of the tools that I can, that I think is going to really make a difference and save you a lot of time and all of that. So again, if you would like to purchase this resource, if you need decodables, you can look at that free sample that I'm giving you to see the quality of them. If you want to stay on a little longer after questions, I can show you one or two a little more in detail. I'm just so excited about them. But I'm putting them on sale from now until Thursday at midnight. So if you're thinking about buying them, now would be the time, because 40% is like such a deep discount. Usually any of like the site-wide, like the cyber sale will be coming up in November, I guess. That's usually like a 25% discount. So this is just like a celebration that 6 months of work is done. So I'm going to flip off my camera now. Let's see, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go over to my, hold on one second, questions and see what I can answer for you. Uh-oh, where did my questions go? Okay, here we go. All right, Allison says, my question is for districts that have goals set for students at the end of each year. My students are supposed to be at a level D at the end of the year. Where can I find end of year goals for decodable text broken down by grade level? Is there anything like that out there? Okay, Allison, that is such a good question. And I actually am seeing that question asked, I think, because it's like parent report card and grading time, or parent report card, parent conferences. And I happened to notice when I was in here that Wiley Blevins, and I don't know if you have any, I hate to say like Fontes and Pinnell, like I don't know what you're using for your program, like your leveled books. I don't know if they have any like guidelines that break it down, but he is saying in this book, and he says, but I use level books. How do I include use the chart in the following pages to create your own guided reading decodable text planning chart. So he is saying, and shoot, here, I'm going to hold it up. See if you could take a screenshot or buy the book. But he's saying like that these are the skills, which I'm like, well, I don't know if that exactly works, because when I looked at a pattern A book that I showed you earlier, it was not just basic letter sounds and introducing the alphabetic principle. So here's what I would do if I was you. I would talk to, well, you're saying it's a district goal. So this is something that I think you need to bring to your administrator. And one of the things I think can be very helpful, I mean, of course, I'd love them to watch this video, but something that would be very powerful is if you pull up on YouTube the Purple Project. It's a short video. It's taken by a mom who was reading decodable, or not decodable, leveled books with her daughter. And she was realizing that this is not, my child's not reading. And so she made part 1 and part 2. And that is one of the videos that really made my eyes wide open to know, right? That is like one of the stepping stones. Districts are moving towards it, but some are not there yet. So if we're trying to teach our students the skills, then we have to like push back and be like, but do you see this like bring a pattern book and show them, and then bring your scope and sequence and show them and say, if my student is reading the word cook, that is not something I teach until May. Like, so I get that we want to give levels, and I know parents want levels. So now we have to reteach our parents, because they're used to, when their older child was in school, to be like, my child's reading at a level J. And they would like talk to all their other parent moms about it. What, they want, it's like immediate gratification, sadly, right? So I think that this is a conversation that I would, if I was you, I would go to your, hopefully have a literacy coach that you can start the conversation and move that conversation. But where can I find end of year goal for decodable text? So, and then maybe like, can you set a goal? I would say, what are your like phonics goals? when I was teaching, we didn't even have a scope and sequence. I told you balanced literacy. So we weren't teaching on a systematic scope and sequence, but we did have a standards-based report card. And so our kindergarten students had to learn certain skills. So look, if you have a standards-based report card, look at the skills that you're supposed to teach each quarter, and then see if you can make your decodables or skills to match with that. I wish I had the answer for you. If you're not in my Facebook group, First Grade Bliss, I would ask that question in First Grade Bliss and see what other teachers are doing, or maybe somebody has put some comments there also. Okay, 2 more questions, and then I'm going to give away 1 more set of decodables also. Okay, Nicole, how many blending lines do you do every day? So Nicole, I really think that that is going to depend on your students, your level of your students. I think that I would definitely think for like students who need more support or more practice, I would break this up, either break it up and do a little bit and then do like a dictation, or do a little bit and then do some tomorrow, right? So you're maybe not going to read the decodable for a few days if you're doing other things within your small group instruction. Or maybe if you're just trying to get them prepared to reading the actual decodable, remember I told you each line had like a specific purpose. So if this is the ch sound, these are the words that we really want our students to practice. And most of these words were already in the decodable, like bunch and crunch. I don't think crunch is in there, but Mitch was definitely in there. Chick was in there, right? So you can think about like they wouldn't need to do that last row where it's like advanced, right? But some of your students are gonna like breeze through this if they're just naturally like at that a little bit more advanced level. Helen, I'm just a mom who loves the science of reading, and my son is in 1st grade. He still found out most words, even though I know he has the words. I tried fluency grids, but he doesn't really like them. When I ask him to think in his head and sound out in his head, he struggles to get the sounds right. Word, should I keep having him sound out loud and the fluency will come later? When I ask him to think in his head and sound it out in his head, he struggles to get the right word. I think that he should be sounding it out loud if he's struggling, I think. And you can do something first of all, blending, starting with those continuant sounds, the ones that you can hold, like right? So he can do at, right? So picking words. So maybe you just want to do some blending like work with him, which sounds like what you're doing. Congratulations, Mom. You're like this mom, Helen, is here. That's amazing. But starting with continuant sounds, those sounds are like, it's not a continuant, it's a popping stop sound, right? But right, we want to take some sounds that continue so they like slide into the next sound. And you can do what we call successive blending, is when you take like the first 2 sounds. So if the word was sat, we would cover the T or not write the T, and we do until he has that, and then add that 3rd sound. So he's not having to hold all of those sounds inside of his head. He's just going to sound out the first part and then add that 3rd sound. You can also do what they call backward decoding. And Mom, Helen, if you're like invested, I think that this book, excuse me, this is one of my favorite reads. Equipped for Reading Success by David Kilpatrick. Please don't buy it on Amazon because it's really marked up. Buy it on his website, Equipped for Reading Success. But he talks about also, he talks about successive blending. My book's falling apart. And he also talks about in his book, backwards decoding, which sounds really weird. But it's when it's like a little bit more of the onset rhyme work. So if you have like the op and then you put in the then it's mop, right? And then you take the off and you put in p, and it's pop, right? So backwards decoding. So they're reading the beginning first and then putting the initial sound. But you also might, and this is maybe where this would come in, or go on my YouTube channel and watch the video on phonemic awareness, because phonemic awareness is what he needs some help. Like, that's the precursor to reading. So you might want to do some phonemic awareness on blending, segmenting, and phoneme isolation with him before you start. Okay. Oh, we keep going. We keep going. Okay. I'm going to do one more giveaway. We have one more question. I will stay for as long as you have questions. I will stay to show off my new books if you want. But let's do giveaway. What's your favorite holiday food? My holidays are coming up and I'm super excited about the food. So do you have a favorite holiday food? Let's hear it. Could be any holiday. I mean, we just had Halloween candy. It's not a holiday though, right? Okay. Oh my gosh. Cheesecake. Yes. Apple pie. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm not going to pick on what I like. Mine is actually the baked corn casserole that my mom used to make. It's my favorite, but I don't know if anyone said that. Okay, wait, I just went all the way up to the top. Let's not do that. Okay, right here. Oh, girl after my own heart. I think it's Sia, CIA, ice cream. I love ice cream. Give me all the chocolate and peanut butter ice cream. So Sia, hello@mrswintersbliss.com. Please email me, say I won the bundle, and I will send it your way tomorrow. Okay, one more question. Leanne says, is there a correlation chart with phonics skills and reading levels? We still have to give F&P assessments for every level. Oh, yes. Choosing and using decodable text has one on page 26. I think that's what maybe I just showed you. Right here is the correlation according to Wiley Blevins in this book. So you should ask your school to purchase this book on Amazon for, I think, $16, choosing and using decodable text. But maybe you should also email Pontus and Pennell and ask them for one as well. No. And again, I think that's the same question that Allison was referring to, is that we are having to, we're trying to move into using what the research tells us. We want to strengthen those neural pathways. We want to build proficient readers. We know that these books are not doing that. So we want to use decodable books. So we can't give assessments using F&P. But unfortunately, districts aren't all the way moved to that point yet. So again, I think that this is a conversation that you as a leader should go to your literacy coach, go to your administrator, go to somebody who you are ready to have that conversation and see what you can do. Because unfortunately, what I'm hearing, here's what I heard a lot of last year in my Facebook group. Teachers were very excited about using decodables, and they were seeing this amazing progress. I cannot tell you the amount of teachers who email me and say, my kids, now that we're focusing on phonics and decoding and putting application and all the things, they are making more progress than 23 years of my teaching career have ever made. This is amazing. I forgot because I'm just, and so they're so excited, but they're not able to measure accurately, because when your students are reading, like in the beginning of the year, words with blends and digraphs in first grade, and then they pick up like a level, you know, they pick up this book that has the word dragon, and they have like, I guess dragon, they could maybe like the word lion, you know, how are they going to decode that, right? If they didn't have a picture, I guess if they're reading the pictures. But if back to the short story is that they weren't proficient or at benchmark at the first quarter and the middle quarter, but at the end of the year, they blew it out of the water, because at the end of your goal, they way surpassed it because they had that explicit systematic instruction with decoding. They unlocked code. That is basically sums up what happened to a lot of students last year. And that's what's shared. So enjoy your freebie. Thank you again so much for coming. My inbox is open if you think of other questions. If you want to see the inside, I'm happy to show you Mitch and the hens. If you want a little bedtime story, I will share it. But some of the things I want to show you is, like, I created this so that it's easy. You just print it and just to fold it easily. I would ask a parent volunteer to do this. But once you print it, they come in they'll be in a nice stack that all you have to do is fold it, this right here. So it will last years and years and years for you. You don't even need to laminate it. It's okay if they get a little bit wrinkled when your students are using it, but it's like a real book for your students. They're going to feel excited, right? And then on the inside, it has the text. I was very choosy with the spacing, the formatting, the font, right? The illustrator did a fantastic job. We incorporated some diverse children in the text. But your students are not reading by pictures, right? Page numbers are there for your students. And little Mitch, he's such a smart little guy. He got some eggs at the end of the story after he saved his chickens, and he went and sold them. He's so smart. But then the final thing, and if you're in my Facebook group, you saw I asked a long time ago what teachers were thinking. And I wanted like an extra opportunity for those who want it. Here's the whole story again in passage form that the students can work on fluency. So again, you can use this over and over and over. The back of the book has the words, the story words that have the skill, the high frequency words that are new to the story, and then again that QR code for that extra support. And so one of the things that if you know Savannah Campbell, she's a good friend of mine, but she has my other decodable passages. And she told me this idea. I didn't even think of it. But last year, she told me she had my decodables and she said, Christina, I started putting the blending lines in a notebook for my students. And they started creating like a notebook, and this became what they started reading for independent reading time. And they just built a library. So if you have my resource with the books, you're using the books in your small group, your students can, keep them in their book box, or you can just have those in your tape. But you also have access to the story in the passage so that you can do the work, the comprehension work. They could take this home and listen to the story and practice reading the story at home for part of their homework, if you do homework, or just if you're having them doing reading at home. And again, there are a couple, that's the writing, but the other version, I don't have the other version where it just has the regular lines instead of like the dotted words where the sentence stem is. But I really, really wanted this to be an amazing resource for teachers, and tried to think through, how can I save time, and how can I make it so valuable, and how can I make it truly decodable? I saw, I'm not talking bad about anybody, because I think everybody is learning and everybody is trying, but I did see someone post decodable books on like a social post somewhere, and it was like a short A book, but it had the word like wave in it, and that is not a decodable word. Like, it is a decodable word because it's a regular word, but not when you're focusing on a short A skill, right? So every word is decodable for your students. So again, yes, blending lines are absolutely included, pre-made for every single book for you. So you don't have to do anything. Literally, you're going to print and teach, and you're going to print out the pages, and they're going to come in like a stack. So you're going to choose, do I want the color, or do I want to save ink and print? And you can just print on white. You don't have to put them on blue or green or any of that. But You could do like all the short vowels in pink, and you could do the blends in yellow and the digraphs in, green or purple or whatever color you want. You want to think that through of if you are using them like to differentiate, then you're going to want to think that through, because we don't want like kids to be like labeled like I'm in the purple group. You're going to have to think through how you're going to project that to your students, right? But you can absolutely, to help yourself be organized, you can print them on different colors, or you can just print them on white paper. And even if they get messed up, you can throw them in the trash and next year, or you can give them away at the end of the year, and you can just send them home and ask a parent volunteer. I send so much home, and parents want to help, but they're working and they can't, but they surely could staple books while they're watching Netflix, right? So, you could absolutely print these out and send them home. But yeah, look at this. Look at this book. This is an R blend, so this is kind of the beginning, but you can see, did you get the box for the frog, said Greg? Yes, I got a big box for the frog, said Fran. I will step on the flat log to get the frog, said Greg. The log is wet. You will slip off, said Fran. I can grab the frog in a net from the log, said Greg. I mean, these are like actual stories. These aren't like hop on pop, right? So I'm excited. I think you can tell I'm excited. So yes, but shoot me an email if you have any other questions. And I just thank you for giving me an hour and a half of your time. So bye for now, friends.